Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year. We're doing another price update, but this time instead of just showing you the monthly update, we're showing you the 2024 year in review. So all the books we've been talking about for the entire year, all these Silver Age keys, all these Bronze Age keys, we're doing them all together and we're going to see how they did in the year of 2024. Okay, so we're going to start with the Silver Age. We've got 7 books that we've been looking at the entire year. The biggest Silver Age keys in the comic book world. And this is how we do it. GPA data, right? All Universal Blue Label data. It's going to be all sales from 2024 with grades that happen towards the end of the year because we want to keep the data recent, right? So we take all the grades that sold October, November, December, and then we take all that data throughout the entire year for those grades, and we show you a trend. We show you averages, we show you the trend, and I'm going to show you the individual grades as well for each book, okay? So if you've been here before and watched my videos, you know how it works, but we're just going to focus on the 2024 year to see how these books did, okay? So we're going to start with ASM number 1. Not, you guys know I always say this about ASM number 1. It's not a major key other than being the number 1 issue in ASM, which still a great book to have, but no big first appearances, no big storylines. Nonetheless, still a big book. It ended 2023 just over a $17,000 book on average. We're just going to let the data roll here through 2024, and we're going to see how it did. So here we go. As you can see, the book actually started going up, kind of flattened out, and then at the end of the year tanked a little bit. So October, November, the book went really far down, and then in December, a slight uptick. So overall, the book lost about $2,000, and it was down 11%. And again, right, the December data point here, maybe that's a bright spot, and you're probably going to see a trend here of some things to come with other books as well. But so this is a trend. This is the average price of all the grades that were included in the data. And here are the grades. So you had a 6.0 and a 5.0 that increased from the beginning of the year to the end of 2024. And all the other grades went the wrong direction. Okay. So again, this is probably going to be a similar trend with a lot of the other books we look at. But let's keep going because we have a lot to go through. Okay. So ASM number 1. A down year, 11% down. Okay, Hulk number 1, the rarest of the Marvel Silver Age keys by far. $17,000 book, $17,345 to be exact. How it ended 2023. Let's see how it went through 24 and ended at the end of the year. All right, so big downturn throughout a majority of the year here. And then December, again, just like ASM number 1, it went up, a big up at the end of the year. So the book still lost, let's see, almost $3,000, down 16% for the year. And we look at the individual grades. The 3.0 was the lone bright spot that increased, and everything else went down by quite a bit. So December saving this book a little bit from being a bigger disappointment, but nonetheless, still on average with all these grades down 16% for the year. X-Men number 1. First appearance of the X-Men team, the original team, $13,700 book. Here's how it went. So pretty flat and then some ups. And how it ended the year, this book, when you just like step back and kind of squint a little bit, pretty even for most of the year. It dropped about $400, so down 3% for the year. Not too bad. And when I see things like this, I would expect to see almost even green and red on the individual grades, right? That's why we show it both, right? We show the averages and we show the individual grades. So when we look at it, now it's not close to 50-50. Yes, there were some big grades that had increases throughout the year, the 7.0, 6.5, and 6.0, but everything else going the wrong direction. And when you get the bigger grades that have an increase, and likewise, if you have a big grade that has a decrease and everything else is green, it can really skew your average. So I think these higher grades having increases is really what made the line look fairly flat throughout the year. But the reality is most of the grades are continuing to go down, okay? X-Men number 1, nonetheless, down only 3% for the year. on average. All right, Tony Stark, first Iron Man, Tales of Suspense number 39, $11,600 book to end 2023. Let's let it roll here. A lot of down points on Tales of Suspense 39, especially the end of the year. Here's the first book we've seen that didn't have an uptick in December. So October, November were really, really bad for this book, dropping, over $2,600, down 23% for the year, losing almost a quarter of its value. And when you look at the grades, yeah, it pretty much makes sense. The 2.5 and the 1.8 had increases, but everything else, pretty big decreases. And that 7.5 going down by 30%, yes, like I said, it works both ways, whether it's an upward point or a downward point, right? Those bigger grades can really have an effect on your average. But I mean, this book's down almost across the board, okay? So down 23% for the year, not a good year for Tony Stark. All right, Fantastic Four number 1. This is the second rarest of the big Marvel Age keys, next to Hulk number 1. First appearance of Marvel's First Family. It was averaging over a $25,500 book to end 2023. Let's see how it did. So very, very slow declines here, including December. Kept going down. October, November, December did not end the year very well. So it lost over $3,500, down 14% for the year. And all but one grade had pretty big decreases. Okay. So you're seeing the trend here. A lot of the books doing the same thing. And again, I like showing the averages, right? The curves, how they did month to month. But then the grades are really important. So you get an idea of, how many of the books are actually going down versus up. All right, so that's FF number 1, down 14% for the year. And then Fantastic Four number 5. This book I added after the July announcement at San Diego Comic-Con because this is the first appearance of Doctor Doom. And at SDCC, it was announced that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be coming back to the MCU, and he's going to play Doctor Doom in the Avengers Doomsday movie, which I don't even think is the next Avengers. I think there's another Avengers movie coming out first, and then Doomsday later on, maybe in 2026 or 27. I don't know. But regardless, we expected to see a spike after that announcement in these prices. And spoiler alert, we did see it. If you watch my earlier videos, what'll be interesting is to see how the book did after the initial spikes in the July announcement, okay? So let's let it roll here. It was just over a $9,000 book to end 2023. Let's see what happened. Beginning of the year, this book dropped a lot. And then you see the July announcement. You had two big increases in August and September. And then October, November, it corrected more than it increased from that announcement. And then December, a little bit of a bright spot, went up a little bit. Okay, so the book lost over $2,000, down 23%, again, losing almost a quarter of its value for the year. So two things, right? Or three things to look at here. Big drops at the beginning of the year, big increase after the announcement, and an even bigger decrease after that announcement. So there you go, down 23% for the year. And when you look at the grades, not a lot of grades sell on this book because it's a big book. It's a very, very pricey key. One grade going the right direction, all the rest, big decreases. All right, that 5.0 down 46%. Yikes. All right, there you go, Dr. Doom. And then finally, we end the Silver Age keys before we get into the Bronze Age keys, right? We're ending with the King of the Silver Age, Amazing Fantasy 15, first appearance of Peter Parker, Spider-Man. $50,000 book on average. My goodness, this is an expensive book. That's how we ended 2023. Let's let the data roll, see what happened. Pretty even to start the year for a good part of the year. And then, of course, like every other book, the end of the year was not so good. September, October, November, big downward points. And then December, very, very slight increase. The book dropped over $7,000 on average. It's still almost a $43,000 book, though. Down 14% nonetheless. Let's look at the individual grades. Yes, only one grade had an increase for the year. All the rest, pretty big. Almost everything is a double-digit decrease and big double digits. So, again, nothing new here, but with all the other videos out, right? There are a lot. There are a lot have come out this year saying, hey, 2024, it was good or it was terrible or it was, everything stayed flat. Well, this is why I show you the data, right? There are no opinions here. There are a bunch of different ways to look at data, but the data is saying all these Silver Age keys went down for 2024 and went down by quite a bit when you look at the individual grades, okay? So here's something I haven't done before. I put all the books together, right? So we're going to take out some of any of the volatility we have in the individual books, put them all together, look at the data as a whole for the Silver Age. And again, this, you know exactly the books that are going into it and all the grades that I showed you. Let's see. This trend is probably going to look pretty similar to what we saw in the other books, right? But it's more of a flatter trend, right? You don't have a lot of volatility there. And it dropped from $20,600 down to $17,700. So a $3,000 drop. So these Silver Age keys on average are down 14% for the year. Although, look, we have a little bright spot in December, like we saw in majority of the books. Is this a sign of things to come for 2025? We don't know. What do I think? Probably not. Probably not. But it is nice to see a December point going the up direction, right? On average for these Silver Age keys. And then just side by side comparison, looking at all the books again and the individual grades. It's a sea of red with a few little bright spots. X-Men #1, surprisingly, right? Because that is not a rare book at all. But having those higher grades all show increases. I'm a little bit surprised by that. But again, the data is what it is. All right, so Silver Age, a lot of red, very few bright spots here. All right. Bronze Age keys. The 2024 price update, the 4 big books, and I added House Secrets 92 towards the end of the year. So let's look and see how these things did throughout the year and ended the year in December. We're going to start with The Punisher. His first appearance, ASM 129, just under a $3,500 book to end 2023. Here's how it did for the year. A lot of downward points on this book. Little flat at the beginning of the year, or I'm sorry, in the middle of the year, and then towards the end of the year, a lot of downward points. And then November, December, pretty flat, a little bit up, a little bit down. So overall, it dropped about $800, down 24%. So again, losing almost a quarter of its value. And when you guys look at the individual grades here, and there are a lot of grades, because Bronze Age book, they're a lot more common, a lot more available, and a lot of sales. So we have a lot of grades to look at here. And this is a little bit scary. Everything from the 9.8 all the way down to the 3.5 went the wrong direction. And then the 3.0 had a very slight increase of 2%. And I always stop the Bronze Age books at a 3.0 just because there's so many of them available that we don't have to go to those super low grades. So there you have it. Not a good year for the Punisher. Okay. Giant Size X-Men #1. This one's a little bit of a surprise when you look at the average, okay? But I'll show you here in a second. So this was about a $4,800 book to end 2023. And by the way, it's the first appearance of the new team in 1976. So $4,800 book. How did it do throughout the year? Pretty volatile here, right? A lot of big ups and big downs. But it actually ended the year $5 higher than it began the year. So yes, it's less than 1%. It's really probably closer to like 0.1%, but nonetheless, it went up. So when you look at a graph like this, without knowing anything, you would think, oh, the grades are probably half green, half red, because this book pretty much stayed even for the year. Well, let's look at the grades. Well, not quite. It did have 5, right? This is the most amount of grades we've seen having green, 5 of them, and especially those 2 high ones, 9.8, 9.6, really helped drive that average. But we still have like 70% of these grades that lost value for the year, okay? That's why I show both ways. Again, averages in these graphs, these line graphs can be deceiving because it's an average. But it's one way to look at the data, and then we look at the individual grades, and it might tell you the same story, it might tell you a different story. In this case, I think it tells a little bit of a different story, right? The book is not officially flat for the year. You had a large majority of the grades going the wrong direction. But the data is the data. Those high grades, they increased in value over the year, right? So nothing to sneeze at there. That 9.8, 9.6, and even the 9.2 went up. All right. So that's Giant Size X-Men #1. Now let's go to the King of the Bronze Age, Incredible Hulk 181. First appearance of Wolverine. Big, big book. I would say this is probably, for most Marvel collectors, the second most sought after key issue after Amazing Fantasy 15, right? Which is, we know AF15 is out of reach for, 90+% of people in the world here. So Hulk 181, a little bit more affordable, and a lot of people are able to get it. And the book's definitely more affordable than it was during the COVID boom. But all we're talking about here is 2024. So it ended last year, $5,300 book. How did it do in 2024? Well, here you go. A little bit flat start year, then a whole bunch of downward points. And then it ended the year with a few ups and downs, but pretty much flat. December was a down point, but nonetheless, the book dropped about $500, 9% decrease. And here we go. You look at the grades, even though the book only went down 9% for the year, almost everything across the board is dropping on this book. You've got the 9.6 at the top and the 3 at the bottom that went up. Everything else dropped for the entire year of 2024. All right. So these superhero books, especially when they're plentiful, like the ones we just looked at, and the times we're living in right now, people are just not willing to pay a sale price that's higher than the last one, right? Everyone is looking to pay less than what the last sale was. And and this data is indicative of that, right? Everyone is going to pay less than the previous sale. That's the way it's going right now. All right, here we go. House of Secrets 92, Bronze Age horror, arguably the biggest Bronze Age horror book out there. And I say arguably because I know there are some people out there that I talk with on Instagram that are really big into Bronze Age horror. And we talk about all the other key issues. And some of those other books are harder to get than this one, believe it or not, even though this is an awesome Bernie Wrightson cover, first appearance of Swamp Thing. Nonetheless, it is a big Bronze Age horror key. It's not a superhero book. This is the only book on this entire list, Silver Age, Bronze Age, that is not a superhero book, okay? So it's a little bit different. It's kind of apples and oranges, but I wanted to add it because a lot of people were saying Bronze Age horror is immune to the correction that we've seen on all the superhero books. All right, so let's see. This was a $2,500 book to end 2023. How did it do in 2024? Let's let it roll here. So slow downward trends, but a consistent downward trend for the entire year. The book ended losing about $160, down only 6%, and a lot of grades sold throughout the year. We saw some other books didn't have quite as many grades. This one had a bunch. And yes, it had 4 points or 4 grades that were increasing, the 6.5, the 5.0, the 4.5, and the 3.0, but still a large majority moving in the downward direction. And I think in this case, this is a really good example where the line graph and the individual grades both kind of tell the same story, right? 6% is not a huge drop compared to what a lot of the other superhero books have been doing. And likewise, right? This is about as close to 50-50 as you can get on the individual grades. Nonetheless, Bronze Age horror, even for a big key like House of Secrets 92, is not immune to the corrections we're seeing across the entire comic book world, right? We haven't gotten into Golden Age yet. That is a much, much different animal. But Bronze Age horror going down, at least this book. And then here's a summary of all 4 together. So they averaged $4,000 to end 2023, and at the end of 2024, dropped about $400. So these Bronze Age keys altogether dropping 9% for the year. And then we put them side by side. Yes, a lot of red, man. The ASM 129 and the Hulk 181, that's a rough story for those 2 books. And then when you look at the Giant Size X-Men #1 and the House Secrets 92, those had the most green. And those are the 2 rarest of these 4 books. But I mean, when you want to talk about rarity and numbers on the census, House of Secrets 92 is definitely, the winner there in terms of how rare. I think there's slightly over 3,000 books on the census, blue labels. And then the other 3, it's between 12,000 and 16,000 books. So House Secrets 92 is like a quarter of the number of books on the census compared to the other three. So much more rare book, and that kind of sums it up, right? Nonetheless, even though it's that rare, Bronze Age horror, that specific book, classic Burning Rights and Cover, still going down like the other ones, all right? Okay, coming soon. So I've been telling you guys, I'm going to be adding some more books to both the Bronze Age and Silver Age. I'm holding to those dates where I'm going to add them, and here they are. All right, so for the Bronze Age, yes, I promise in January we're going to add first appearance of Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider, Marvel Spotlight number 5. It's going to happen. And then in February, we're going to add first appearance of Moon Knight, Werewolf by Night 32. And then for the Silver Age, finally, first appearance of Thor, Journey to Mystery 83. That'll happen in January. And then in February, Avengers number 1. I have a lot of people asking me to do the Avengers book for like 2 years now, and I haven't done it. I'm sorry. I'm going to add it in February. Mark my words. So this is what's coming, and I'm sticking to it. We're going to have videos on these. That's it. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you think. This is not doom and gloom, you guys. Books are going down. Yeah, so be it. Now it's more affordable, right? A lot of these books are more affordable for these longtime collectors. And I know some of you out there are some of the people watching this video. So go get them if you want them. Otherwise, wait. They're probably going to go down a little more. This is not a doom and gloom story. We're going to put a positive spin on this. And the positive spin is these books are becoming more affordable, okay? And that's a good thing. All right, that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, have a great day.